Well, good evening, everyone. This is John Craig.
And this is Sandy.
And you are with us on this live program of Walking in Spirit in Truth. It's the third day of the week. It is the sixth day of unleavened bread.
And
what?
Anyway.
I know people have different calendars. We're counted as
okay.
As day
all right.
Shh.
Well, I wanted to say we are broadcasting right here from Amarillo, Texas, where all the snow is melted. Yes, we got snow.
Yeah, about 2 inches.
On April 13th. Yeah, think about that. But we got all our plants covered, so that was good. And anyway, hallelujah that the snow's melted. Now I'm ready to uncover all my plants out in my garden because they need sunlight and air. Anyway.
They need fresh air.
They need fresh air.
All right. Fresh air is good.
But we are so glad that you've joined us today. You can get more information about us at our website, www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org. And it's scrolling right there on the bottom of the screen. You may want to know a little bit about us. Well, John and I pastor a church in Amarillo, Texas called Life of Worship. We co-pastor. And we also do a few other shows on this Messianic Lamb Network. The Next Chapter on Thursdays at 8:45 Central AM. Let Us Reason Together on Monday at the same time, 8:45 Central AM. And then the War Room Mondays, War Room, 7:30 AM, where we pray. We get your requests and we pray. And prayer is a good way to start any and every day. Yes?
I would agree with that. Yep. So I'm actually checking in so we can see how the broadcast is going. I got it set up on my phone. But hey, just wanted to share some things today. And as we we're going to be talking about something very interesting today. And I think it's something that really struck us because of our gathering on Shabbat.
No, it's actually because of what I preached on Shabbat. So anyway,
between that, but some of the things that happen, these dynamics that are going on that we're all walking through. And so we're going to talk about some things that I think is going to hit close to home. I think you want to stay close, but I also want to give you an update on some of the news items that we've been keeping track of, not the coronavirus stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on there. It seems every headline relates to that. But on the other hand, I have been talking about, the coronavirus is going on over here and the distraction in the right hand, but what's going on with the left hand that you can't see off the screen? What's going on and that's what we've been watching. We've been paying very close attention to. Now, one of the things that I've been saying is the whole reason for the lockdown is possibly because of what's coming upon the earth. And a few weeks ago, we went and as back in March, Sandy, it's been like 4 or 5 weeks since we talked about this originally. And it's something I've been tracking for quite a long time beyond just March, but March became very real when the lockdown started to take place. And that has to do with the things that are coming upon the earth. And we went through Luke 21. We went through Revelation chapter 6. We kind of pointed out some things and said, hey, these are some interesting elements of why connecting the dots, why lockdown is in place, because the government would need to have some type of social controls so that panic would not break out, where people are not convening, gathering together, checking things out, looking at other things, and keep them completely focused on coronavirus. And so what is that? Well, been talking about these asteroids that the Earth that they're coming into our orbit. They're coming into, I'm not going to go into the flat Earth type of thing, but if you consider that the Earth is going around the sun, that these things are coming into our planetary, what do you call it? Ellipse?
I don't know. I don't know what you're
the circuit of the Earth. Okay, so I'm not an astronomy guy. I'm just talking about how these things are coming in the path of the Earth. And we saw last week, maybe the week before, an impact in Nigeria that they first said it was a bomb or not a bomb, but some explosive blew up on a truck that caught fire as it was going through a village. And then the experts went out there, measured the crater, and found out that the crater showed an impact at 43 degrees. And they found bits and pieces of a meteor in the middle of the crater and said, nah, there's no way. There's no blast. There's no residue from a blast. There's no fire from a blast that would be related to dynamite or any type of explosive. So there's kind of a cover up there. But we've been talking about how we should expect meteor showers that would increase to what they would call meteor storms. Well, Sputnik News.
And what's Sputnik News?
Sputnik News is actually a Russian news source, reported about 2 days ago, maybe 3 days ago, and it was on stevequail.com. Some of you may remember it. You can actually go back and look at the headlines on it. And they were reporting that on April the 15th, NASA said that there would be 2 asteroids that would come in contact, possibly in contact with the Earth. Now, these things can shift. They can move. They bump around with things in space. But there's 2 that they're looking at that may very well come in contact with Earth tomorrow on April the 15th. And with that being said, one of them is smaller, and they expect when it hits the atmosphere that it'll burn up.
So they are actually expecting them?
They're expecting
to come in contact with the Earth, not just go by in the atmosphere.
Well, one they're expecting to burn up in our atmosphere.
But I meant like, here's the Earth, and it goes up, doesn't come near it.
Yeah, it's not just going to clip.
Near,
it's not going to be so many lunar distances from the Earth. They're expecting it to come into our atmosphere.
Okay.
And one's going to burn up. And then the other one, they said that it will impact the Earth. So you can go back and you can check out the article and read it for yourself. But this one is larger, and so it will not completely burn up. It may be small by the time it hits the Earth, but consider this. They said that it could, if it doesn't burn up enough, it could be big enough to destroy an entire city.
Well, and that's what they've predicted, is that these asteroids that will start coming down, and it's going to get worse as time goes on, if this is correct, these government sources are correct, that they will be city killers, and that much of the West, meaning North America,
like the Northern Hemisphere,
the Northern Hemisphere across the world will be completely destroyed. But here's my question is, if something like this happens, we won't hear about it. They'll do what the South African government did and try to cover it up.
That was Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Right. Yeah, where the governor of that state within Nigeria tried to give the media a false story.
Narrative, which is a lie. Why do we pretty things up? He lied about it and wanted everybody to believe that. And probably there was pressure from other people to lie about it too, because they don't want people to know.
And what was very interesting is that one hit just like along the side of the town, but it actually caused damage and even destroyed up to 100 buildings, residences, buildings, and that type of thing. That's so as the blast itself, besides the impact, was blown out windows and doors and roofs and all that sort of thing. So that's what we're watching for. We're not going to be in fear, but we are going to be watching these things, because this is what Yeshua said would happen in these days. Of course, what other things that are going on, we're hearing, rumors of war. There's preparation of going to war somehow with Iran, somehow going on with China. We've heard that for a long time, but apparently things are stepping up because of coronavirus, using that as the excuse. So we're watching these things.
Well, loss of food supply. There's so much going on that you could do endless news shows on it. We're not going to do it, but you could.
The next point is that, of course, between the 16th and the 25th of April is a period of time where there is an expectation of meteor showers. So
I thought the 19th was a key day.
No, it's the 29th. So the 29th is the next key day in terms of a large asteroid. Now, this is where last week I messed up, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I messed up and I said that it was 200 or 300 meters around, like 2 or 3 football fields around, but it's actually 1.5 to 2 kilometers, 2.5 kilometers around, or something to that. I mean, it's big.
So it's bigger.
It's really big.
So you underestimated the size of it.
Yes, it's really big. And this one is one that they're watching because
but they already know where they're going to land. So where are they going to land?
Well, this one they said it's supposed to come like 0.6 lunar distance from the Earth.
So it's not supposed to come in.
So
contact.
a 1 lunar distance is like from Earth to the moon. So it's supposed to come about halfway distance of what the distance is between the Earth and the moon. And of course, that's the estimate. Things change.
But how
orbits.
does that change us? How does that? I mean, if it's not coming and hitting the Earth, how does that matter?
That's a really good question, because it's not maybe whether that one hits us, it's what's traveling with it. And that's the thing that.
So it carries debris with it.
So that it may be carrying debris with it that is going to be within the range of the Earth, that we might actually have some meteor showers or a meteor storm. So we're paying attention to that. They can't see all of those things, but of course, NASA and Russia also has a space agency. They're actually watching and tracking these as best they can as well. And so we're paying attention. They're not going to give the information because they don't want the world to panic, because once
but then the world can't prepare either.
Right. If they say to get hit by a whole bunch of meteors and it's going to take out
just in place,
it's going to type of thing. It's going to disrupt supply lines and that. Then don't you think there's going to be raids on the grocery stores and all that type of thing?
Has been.
Every time there's a hurricane, there's raids on grocery stores.
Well, let's just talk about this. The grocery stores have resupplied some things, but they're still empty on many other things. So the raids on the grocery stores have already occurred.
Well, in Amarillo, Texas, they say, hey, a snowstorm's coming, and guess what? Everybody's in the grocery store.
But there's not even those supplies anymore.
Even if we have snow, it may last for 24 hours. It melts off, and then we go on. Yet people feel like it's going to be like shelter in place for 2 weeks.
We have to say we do get blizzards, and they usually come once a year, but not the last couple. And maybe one a season, and it is more than just 24 hours.
We had more snow in this snow than we had all winter. So anyway, and it's springtime. So those are some things that we're paying attention to. We're just watching. If this is the time of Yeshua's return, he said these things would come upon the earth. But April 29th, of course, that's about 2 weeks away. This is leading up to that next date that seems to be very important. That's being stressed, and that's May the 12th. So as we watch these days, what are we doing? We're watching, we're praying, we're paying attention, we're letting everybody know. But get this, but wait, there's more. I happened to turn on a show today with where there was I guess he's a writer, and he's an investigator that has the IntelliHub.com website. You can go to it. It's the top article of the day. And guess what he says in this article?
I have no idea.
He said the thing that I've been saying. He said that there's asteroids that are coming this direction. He's talking about the 2 that are coming tomorrow. He's saying that the reason for the whole coronavirus shutdown is not because the coronavirus,
which we know that we understand that's true.
Even though and get this, I understand people are being affected and people are being afflicted and some people are dying from the coronavirus, but it's not any more greater magnitude than the annual flu. So, but I understand there's elements that are very risky about it. Don't get upset or offended. So don't be, But he said the reason that they're shutting everything down is because this is the national emergency. All 50 states have declared a national emergency. In fact, the president declared all 50 states under a national emergency. And yet we don't see, they're not using all the tents that are set up. They're not filling up the hospitals, the emergency rooms, or anything like that. So why all of the medical? Why are all of the medical troops being called up? Those with the medical training and backgrounds that are being called up from the reserves. Up to, I think, 1 million reservists have been put on notice, and they all relate to medical backgrounds. What are they expecting? That's the question. You can go to IntelliHub.com and check out the article and see what they're trying to say. He also goes into the fact that under the Denver International Airport is possibly the center of where they will have the government continuity of government. because they won't be able to operate from the White House. So what's all that about? And the other thing that he actually says, and I'm still weighing this in the balance. A lot of people have been going around. There's a conspiracy theory that President Trump's been at the press club where they've removed his presidential seal.
But I've seen it today. Even I've seen the seal on his stuff. Even yes.
So
that's not true.
It's not necessarily. Yeah, a lot of times what happens, it even happened at least 4 different occasions in the Obama administration where where President Obama was up there, the seal was not on the podium because he was sharing the podium with so many different people. But they've shared the podium with other people with it up there. So we don't know. We're just watching. We're paying attention, see what's happening.
All I know is that today the presidential seal was on when they were outside.
Was it?
So, yep,
okay.
I looked.
All right. So that's very interesting. So keep those things in mind. The element is that FEMA, because of what the president did a few weeks ago with invoking the Stafford Act. Yeah, or the Stafford Act. And where it puts it under the United States under emergency orders, and that FEMA is really orchestrating all of the movement of the troops and the emergency setup of tents, and in regards to relating to this national emergency that may not be related to the coronavirus ordeal. That is, what do we have in the chat room there?
Excuse me.
Don't get choked up.
Tova said when he's in the White House press briefing room, it's the White House logo. But when he's in the Rose Garden, it's the presidential seal.
Okay. Isn't that interesting? Okay. I wonder why the difference. And because everything is completely orchestrated for a purpose. No details are forgotten, left out, or undone. There's a purpose every time.
We have a friend who's a former Pentagon. I mean, he worked at the Pentagon, and
Officer.
he's a colonel.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, he's very well informed and very knowledgeable of the goings on, so to speak, of Washington.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we wanted to bring to you this update today because this is just more information for you to weigh, to pray about, to ask for discernment. Don't take what we say, but research it for yourself. I know many of you that are in the Messianic community, the Hebrew roots communities, you are researchers. That's why you're here, because you just want to know the truth. But go and research those things out, make your own decisions. But we just feel like we should put these things on the table so that they are part of the discussion. So I just thought it was very interesting now that I'm seeing other sources beginning to talk about these meteors.
That's really at least 4 now that we have.
That's a minimum of 4
that we have that are verifying, and at least 2 or 3 of those are coming from government sources, from insider sources, from
people that have connections.
Right. They're not the layperson or some news feed. It's coming from the actual people in the know. So, we're ready, right? We're ready. So I do know that if something actually hits and they don't cover it up, which would be a surprise to me tomorrow, if they wouldn't cover it up, that you better go get your groceries tonight.
Well, I understand this. So with social media, it's hard to cover things up. That's how the truth came out in Nigeria. People had their cell phones, social media. They started questioning it. It started getting around, and that's why the professor and his team from a nearby university, how he found out about it and said, "We're going to just do our own investigation," and that's what they did.
And that's good, but unfortunately, the government still tries to cover it up.
Yeah.
Now, Tova said, "So when are they to hit?" John just talked about. Go ahead. I've got a itch.
Okay, so these 2
just real quick
that are supposed to intersect.
She missed the first part.
Yeah, so these 2 that are coming in are supposed to intersect with the Earth tomorrow, April the 15th. And
there's a larger one going to be between the distance of the moon and the Earth on April 29th. That's massive.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a big one on April 29th. But
it's carrying stuff with it. So the debris and the other meteors that it's carrying with it in its massive size could potentially hit.
Yeah. Well, and it's possible it is. Potentially. Now, here's something else. There is a Comet Atlas. Many people have been watching that. That's supposed to be coming near the earth, possibly will even run parallel with the earth for a certain amount of time in the next, I think it's going to be around the 29th of April as well. Or maybe that's when it's going to be visible to the earth, but it's supposed to be when it gets close to the earth, may run close, may run parallel for a while. We may, this one, by the way, that's on the 29th, it's supposed to be 2 pass by. So we're going to pass by it. And then then it's going to go around the sun and come back around to us.
So it has 2 chances.
Yeah, it's 2 chances
be hit and moved off course.
Yeah, to come by here. Now, Atlas has broken up into pieces.
How did that happen?
I don't know how it happened, but it's still these pieces are traveling together. Of course,
is the trajectory still the Earth?
The trajectory is to come near the Earth, but it's supposed to be at quite a bit of a distance. But again, what's in the debris field? Are we going to cross that debris field? Is that going to be something that we're going to be that's going to come shower down on the earth as well? That's something that we're watching. Now, here's something else to pay attention to, and this has to do. And I told Sandy this yesterday. She says, "How do you know about that?" Well, maybe it was Sunday. Quantum physics. I'm going to say quantum physics.
Of course, we hear about quantum physics all the time, but you're not a physics man.
No, but I can take information and relay it, and those that are smarter than I am, which is, not saying much, but those that actually understand those things can go research it and maybe provide us with additional information in layman's terms. But what they are finding, this was another report about asteroids that I came across and I read, and it talks about how, and I was trying to put pieces together last week when I heard the report from around the world about quantum physics and how an object that's out at Jupiter can actually get to the sun within 2 days. And he said it's by quantum physics. And I'm like, explain that. Don't be cryptic. Okay, that's fast.
From Jupiter to the sun in 2 days. So from the sun to the earth, it would take nothing.
Yeah, right. And we know, and that's because you're looking at traveling at faster than light or light speed. I mean, we're talking at super speeds. Well,
it's over my head.
I think what I'm understanding as I've been pondering this and what I read from a report is that apparently the report was this: Jupiter is flinging asteroids at the Earth. Now, I have always heard that Jupiter is like a protection of Earth, and it actually takes a lot of hits from asteroids that are coming in from outside the solar system. But apparently what's happening is some of these asteroids get caught in Jupiter's gravity or plasma field, and it springs around and slingshots it towards the sun.
Like when you go to the moon, you slingshot around and the momentum of that brings you a lot back to the earth.
Yeah.
So I learned that from Apollo 13.
Yes. The whole idea of Apollo 13. So, and some people say we never left the earth, but whatever. So that's that. I guess that I'm putting the pieces together. Maybe that's the theory behind things getting from Jupiter to here that quick because of the slingshot effect.
Not a wormhole?
Not a wormhole. Of course, it could be a wormhole, but no, I think it's
or another dimensional thing.
Well, there's dimensions that we don't even know about.
We don't. I know. Don't you? I want to know, but then maybe I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Tova said earlier, she said, like I said before, it's like with an earthquake. They tell you to stand in the door. So with quarantine, they'll be able to find us in our house.
That's right. Yeah.
Anyway.
There they are. By the way, talking about earthquakes and earth-changing events, there was a picture of where the tornado went through Mississippi, and these people, when they built their house, they decided to put in a safe room.
That's smart.
And they were in the safe room actually watching the Resurrection Day services. I'm going to call it Resurrection Day because
where were the Resurrection Day services?
Well, online. And so the storm was going. They were in the safe room while it was going on, and the tornado hit their area, hit their town. When they came out of the safe room, their entire house, furnishings and everything was swept off the foundation. The only thing left was
their safe room.
And they put it in there kind of
that's so devastating
as an idea that they wanted to do. And wow.
I'd like to have
they were spared.
I'd like to have
what a horrible thing.
I'd like to have a safe community.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that what Yah does? Oh,
Isn't
yeah.
that right. Yeah. So, but we need to keep the people that have gone through this tragedy,
that's
because many of them have
horrible.
been laid off and lost their jobs during the time of this coronavirus.
And now they've lost everything
downturn,
else.
and now they lost their houses as well.
Well, why don't you pray real quick?
And we need to pray that the Father just intervenes, that they won't let depression or anything hit them.
Well, and there's great provision. I know that when the big, it made national news, tornado hit Dimmitt, Texas, where I grew up, little town. It was then about 4,500, 5,000. Now it's not. But that it was an F5, and it literally pulled the concrete up.
The pavement, yeah. The pavement off the road.
So those things can be powerful.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So, Father, we lift up those folks in Mississippi and those
Father.
Other states that were affected by these storms that went through, the tornadoes, and they lost everything, lost a lot of their livelihood, their homes, their businesses, and all during the shutdown. And Father, we just lift them up.
Yes, right now in Yeshua's
that you would show great provision, and that, Father, that they would find joy, that the joy of the Lord would be their strength, and that fear and depression will not have a foothold. And we just rebuke any work of Hasatan and any spirit of suicide and death that would try to sweep through that area where the people feel like all is lost. In the name of Yeshua, we declare that you have no authority. And we ask, Father, you put a hedge of protection, that by the blood of Yeshua, that you and remember your covenant with your covenant people. And those that are outside of the covenant, bring them into the covenant. Use this time of devastation not to where they curse you, but, Father, that they would be protected from those lies and deceptions of Hasatan, so that they would run to you, and that their eyes would be open, knowing that it is you, Father, that even spared their very lives. Father, for those that lost loved ones, sometimes we look was that mercy, or was it, or besides the tragedy? But we can just say the family members that are left, they need your comfort. They need to know your shalom.
Provision, your shalom.
They need to know that you are in the midst.
Father.
That, Father, that you are carrying them through this time, and that, Father, give them strength and give them hope. Let them look up and see that their Redeemer draws nigh.
Yes.
And we just lift them to you in the name of Yeshua.
In the name of Yeshua. Well, I did not know that you were going to do a news segment tonight. That's a surprise to me.
Well, don't you know I am a surprise?
Well, I know you love the news, and you research and you listen, and I just he sends me things, and I say, can you just summarize it for me?
Don't tell me these things.
And then I said, don't tell me this stuff unless you're going to take action, like especially if it comes to calling the president or your governors or your city commissioners or something. Don't just talk about it. Do something. Anyway, I love what Jason said. I will praise you in the storm. Hey, Jason, we have missed you, and Christine. It is so good to see you both here.
I pray that you're feeling. We've been praying for you, Jason, by the way.
In the name of Yeshua, let your healing power just surround Jason right now.
Completely realign his back in the name of Yeshua.
Yes.
Let all pain go.
Hallelujah.
In the name of Yeshua, let your shalom rest upon his vertebrae and his spine and the discs.
Yes. Tova's in agreement with me. She says, tell the people, don't send me a link and not tell me what the link is. I'm not going to click it.
I agree, Tova. I've said that so many different times. Give me a heads up of what it's about, because a lot of times it's just hitting the same thing that I've been reading so many different angles.
I think you're going to need your scripture.
I've got my scripture right here.
Are we ready?
Are
we ready to start the segment that I had ready? All right. Okay. Because today I want to take the word separation, the one-to-one concept that Alyssa Allewine teaches in her creation gospel, and I want to go over that. And is it good? Is it bad? And then I want to relate it to what we're doing as a community. Is it scriptural? Is it non-scriptural? Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? But I want us to take it first and understand what it says in Genesis about being separate or being alone. So I want us to turn in our scripture to Genesis 1, verses 9 through 13.
I got one of those in here.
Yeah, I think you do.
Yeah.
So I'll put that in the room.
I didn't delete that from my Bible. I think
I
it's
hope you
relevant.
don't delete anything, or you and I are going to have some words because we don't do that. All right.
So Genesis 1:19.
1, 9 through 13.
Yeah, isn't that what I said?
No.
Okay. 1, 9 through 13. Then Elohim said, "Let the waters below the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And Elohim called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas. And God said that it was good. Then Elohim said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit, and after their kind with seed in them, on the earth." And it was so. And the earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed after their kind, and trees bearing fruit with seed in them after their kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, a third day.
All right. So if you've never heard of the 1-2-1 concept, I want to just back it up and say, let's give some examples of what that might mean. Okay. Well, first off, I want us to look at the week of creation, the creation week. Every day was called good except for day 2. Day 2 was not called good at all. Well, what would have been in there that caused day 2 not to have been called good? Well, we know that Yehovah separated the waters, the Shemayim from the Mayim, the heavenly waters from the earthly waters. Okay. But then on the third day, he gathered the waters once again, and dry land appeared. Of course, and then seed-bearing plants were created, and fruit trees, et cetera, et cetera. Now, and then the day was called good. And right there we see, first off, the earth was out, form and void, and then the waters were separated. That means there was water. It was sort of one set of waters, so to speak. Then they were separated, and then they came back together again. Now, I want us to look at some other things for this 1-2-1 concept, in case you don't know it. And let's look at man and wife. We know that Mr. and Mrs. Adam were one. They were created, male and female. He created them on the 6th day. Okay. So with that being said, so we have Mr. and Mrs. Adam, and then she was separated from him. She was pulled from his side, separated from him, but then they come back together as one. And there again, we have 1-2-1 concept. Now let's look at Israel. Let's look at the Jacob's sons. Jacob had 12 sons. All right. And we know that Joseph's 2 sons were brought in there, but nonetheless, I want us to look at that. All of Israel's sons were one family. And then the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom split apart. The 10 tribes filled the earth, and the others returned. Yehuda returned to Israel. So we know that prophetically it says the 2 sticks will once again become one. That he has come to unite the 2 houses, the house of Jacob, the house of Joseph, the house of Israel and Judah, bring us back together as one family. Again, we have a 1-2-1 concept. But the theme in that means when everything was separated, man and woman were separated. When the whole family of Israel, when the whole family of Jacob is separated, when the waters were separated, it's not good until they come back together. Now, I also want you to understand that waters can be symbolic of people. Okay, so just know that. So let's look at that. Well, the waters were separated. The heavens from the earthly waters were mostly made of water. We can go on from there, but separation is never called good. Were we as a people called to be separated? No, I will say, yeah, we're supposed to be separated from the world, but let's just go through that a little bit, because there's something that happens. Because when you go into that 3rd day experience, separation is only good when it leads to the regathering of like mind and like kind. What does that mean? People that are like us, that believe like us, that like mind and like kind. That's where we're supposed to be gathered with, because we will reproduce in that manner. I tell kids, I tell adults, you're going to become like who you hang with. I had a gentleman ask me this week from one of the prisons the inmates that we minister to. And he said, you know, my wife left me, da, 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 da. And I know when we first got together, she's the one that basically started using and was using, and then got him using and things like that. And now she's left and doing her own thing. And he said, should I fight for that? And I said, well, if she's already remarried and she's with somebody else, there's a whole bunch of different questions there. But I asked him, I said, who will you be with her? I said, she's not walking in Yeshua. I said, who are you going to be with her? Is she of like mind and like kind? No, I'm not promoting divorce, although I think that's already happened. But I just questioned him. I said, I want you to think. I said, if your wife is using and she's doing all that and she's hanging around with those people, I said, you will be back in prison and you're going to do the same thing over and over again. I said, you have to gather with like mind and like kind, especially when you come home, so that your whole, the pattern of old can be changed. I said, you're not the same person you were. And I asked him some leading questions, and I says, now you need to pray and let the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, lead you. And I left him with that. But you will become who you hang with. You know, it's the least common denominator will always bring you down. You don't usually bring them up. It's just the way it is. So just with that said, just know that. And I know many of you already do know that, but sometimes it's just good to hear it again. But we are supposed to be gathered with like mind and like kind. And if we're not being gathered to like mind and like kind, holiness really doesn't matter at all, because you're not really the bride. Just think about that. So when we go to this set apart stage, we're set apart from the world. We've got to be careful that we don't mingle with those worldly things and even the worldly people like we once did. We can't do that. We can't do that. We've got to regather together, and because that is how we reproduce. That is how we are carried to the next step, because being set apart and just staying set apart, it's not holy. He's called us to come together as a holy convocation, as a congregation. Remember, synagogue and ecclesia, church, if they would have said congregation, because it's the same word all throughout scripture from Genesis to Revelation, we wouldn't have had this separation of what it truly means. We are to be a congregation. We are called holy as the bride. The bride isn't one person. It's us as a people. It's Yah's people. We are the bride. We are the living stones. One stone doesn't make a building. Every stone has to come together. When one stone is removed, it makes the building weak. You have the Vav, the letter Vav, which is a connecting letter. It's like the connections that hold the tent down. When one Vav is removed, the connector, it's like us, okay? Then that tent is weak in there, and as time goes, other Vavs will be removed. Other connectors will be removed until the tent falls. So I want you to think about that. Think about that. Is it wisdom to be separated? No, it's not even scriptural. Now, there's a moment in time where we separate when we're unclean and things like that, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, what does the word say about separation? And it's that 1-2-1 concept. You separate from the world to be regathered together again. So when you review all that, so we can go into more, bring it to what we're dealing with today, I want us to think about that progression. So let's start from the beginning. Okay. Light is separated from darkness. Okay. So we have this glimpse of the glory of Yahweh right there. And light, I believe that Torah, that word goes forth. Light is separated. And that then you have the separating the waters. And we're like the lower waters. Our body's composed of water. We're supposed to reflect the heavens because we're supposed to be that mirror. So we're supposed to reflect the Shemayim. We're supposed to reflect Yeshua because we are his body. We are supposed to be that reflection because we're water. We're the waters that are separated as well. And it's supposed to be on earth as it is where?
In heaven.
In heaven.
And think about that. How do the waters reflect the heavens? How do they do it best? Is when they're completely still. And it's like a glass in a mirror. So if our lives are in chaos and confusion and we're allowing to be tossed to and fro from the waves of every thing that's hitting us because of cultural changes and news events and worries and fears, how can we really reflect the heavens?
Right.
How can we reflect Yeshua?
That's right.
We need him to come and lay his hand on us and say, peace, be still.
Right.
Shalom.
So exactly. We have this concept of separation, and it's the concept of holiness to be set apart, to be gathered together, not to set apart on your own, because he separates us to bring us back together on the third day. He separates to bring us back together. And that's where we have that gathering of the waters. So, we've been saved by faith in Yeshua, faith in Messiah. I like what Jason says, be still and know that I'm God. I know Tova and I have really both been on that message before. Tova's in the chat room with us, Jason, and she's gathered with us before at Sukkot, and she's a dear friend. So, as well as Terry's in there with us too. And anyway, we have both been big on the be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I'm Yahweh. I'm your Elohim. So anyway, absolutely. So we have this separation that's really death to our old self, death, and then you're resurrected, you're reborn, and you're part of the body. So the goal is not to remain dead to just dead and the old stuff passed away, but it's to reproduce, and you have to reproduce. It takes more than one. That's how we reproduce. That's how iron sharpens iron. So we have.
Well, why did Yeshua send them out two?
2 by 2.
2 by 2.
You say, why did he send us out 2 by 2?
Mm-hmm. Because it's all about reproducing.
And there's something about that. Being together. We weren't made to be alone. What happens to the antelope on the range?
The lone antelope.
Or the cow that's surrounded, or the sheep that's surrounded by wolves and it's alone. What's going to happen?
Meh.
No, I'm not asking for sound effects.
All right, just going to give you some sound effects. Yeah, dinner time.
So, just to know, we have death, day 1, burial, die to yourself, day 2, separated, and then resurrection on the third day. And so, with that being said, is separation good? Did he call us? What's going to happen in this day and this hour if things are never the same again? I want us to think about that, because were you going to say something?
I was going to say something, because before, when we were allowed to gather, we had the freedom to gather. Think about how many people chose not to gather, and for one excuse or another. And by the way, they'll be there next week for me to come and join if I want. Or
I want to say something there. When you miss one, it's easier to miss 2, 3, and it gets easier and easier each time. Yes. And when you're looking for an excuse to miss the gathering, because Shabbat it's the most common feast or appointment, the moed that we have every week. Every week we come together, to have one voice in prayer, one voice in worship, to lift his name and glorify him, so that he can reign upon us, so that he can show him his goodness. But when the enemy finds an excuse that will keep us out of the body, he will make sure that excuse continues, and you will become less likely and less likely and less likely to come back to church or to the gathering or to the congregation, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah. No, and I was going to say this. The Shabbat is more important than any of the feast days, any of the Moedim. And so why? Because it is a weekly reminder of the 7 days. Remember, the 7th day is when we rest. It's the 7th day when Yeshua returns. It is that pattern. And that's what makes it more significant. Now, and not to neglect any of the others and say that they're less important.
I think they're all important.
They're all important, but from the Jewish culture tradition, the Shabbat is even more important. But you think about it, if you respect the Shabbat, you'll respect the other feast days as well.
Well, I want to just let's go through some steps here. When we gather, we strengthen one another. We lay hands on each other. The gifts of the Spirit run through us so that the body can minister to the body. We receive spiritual food. And by the way, without that spiritual food, we starve. You know, we have that interaction. Even the touch and our touch is required to be healthy. Even, I mean, they have seen babies that aren't touched once they're born. They will have major issues the rest of their life, even if they will even survive. Touch is extremely important. But there are so many things that happen when we come together to hear the word, to strengthen one another, to covenant with one another, to share physical as well as spiritual food, to worship, to praise, to pray, to intercede. It's like this whole, or I don't like the word organism, but there's so many things are involved in the life of the body that happens when we meet together.
Everyone with their giftings and their talents, that all fitting together for that body, so that the work of the ministry can be performed and executed, and as the Father would want on any given day. Now we gather.
Exactly. Now I want us to break down even what secular people say happens when we do not gather together. Okay. Now these are secular. I mean, you can get believing sources as well, but these are secular sources. And it says depriving the sick. Let's just talk about the sick, because remember, the sick are in the hospitals by themselves or in their homes by themselves.
No one's allowed to go to the hospital to see
but
the
even
sick.
in your home. Because most people that have this COVID or anything else are at home. People aren't even being able to go to the hospital for other things because of the restrictions, the empty hospitals of the COVID, empty hospitals with the COVID-19 patients. Anyway, so you're isolated, and it's the secular research says depriving the sick of social connection and physical closeness. That means touching. It makes it harder for them to even defeat any infection, sickness, or disease. So there you go. That's just one thing. But loneliness also makes people feel more vulnerable and more anxious in social interactions. And when you have a mandate that says, hey, you've got to isolate, then you're going to have, when you come back together, there's going to be anxiety. I know even when I've gone to the store, I haven't been in a week or two or something, but people look at you and they're like scared. Everybody, if you're walking, I don't really pay that much attention. I continue, but they're going to walk as far away from you as they can.
Our whole
Everything is
changing.
Changed. It is changed. Because you feel threatened. Now, instead of brothers and being the South, where everybody loves on each other, so to speak, or at least is friendly, now they want to distance themselves as far as they can from you.
Don't get
and
too
then
close.
their eyes, you won't look at each other.
Nobody will look in the eye. They're like, wait a minute, am I unclean? I mean, that's basically how it is. Are we a leprous society now because of this social distancing?
Well, let's just go on, because we all know, you and I've talked about, and many others, there are so many other things going on here. It's not about this thing. There's other things at play, many other things at play to destroy society as we know it.
And it's to demoralize the people,
the
as
useless
well.
eaters.
It's to break. That's how you break people down in order to.
That's what their goal is. So you can become their zombie. You can become their drone.
So you'll become compliant and then be the new people that they want you to be.
The new, yeah.
Go come down. Get your tattoo.
Well, let's not deviate yet.
Right, sorry.
Okay.
All right. I just have to go.
So we know that all of the social distances, it brings out human fear, and fear can turn inward on you and destroy you as well. But it exacerbates the ideas to blame each other and And, it's also going to react in anger eventually. But other studies say that mental health experts are warning that losing everyday social connections does come with steep psychological costs. Okay. These are secular things by social distancing. So this, and I hate that word because it's called martial law. Okay, folks, let's make a pretty name so that you will accept it. That's what we've done there. Okay. So I'll go on. So we know that lack of connectedness actually, as it is said by a study by Joshua Morgenstein, that a lack of social connectedness feels as impactful as not eating. That's a quote. And he is a psychiatrist and disaster mental health expert from the Uniformed Services University in Bethesda, Maryland. So a lack of social connectedness feels as impactful as not eating. Researchers evaluated 24 studies looking at the psychological outcomes of people who were quarantined in extreme form of social distancing during SARS and H1N1 and the flu and Ebola and other infections. And these are the results. The individuals experienced both long-term and short-term mental health problems. They experience PTSD. But their other health problems include stress, insomnia, emotional exhaustion, substance abuse increases. Now, that's one thing you hear, that liquor sales have gone way up. Just saying.
Well, and put this in another perspective. When they take prisoners and isolate them,
to wear them down.
For 30 days, it will make them go crazy. I think it's like 21 days is like the maximum of social isolation. So anything more than that, and think about this, think about the people that they live by themselves and they can't get out. They can't communicate with anybody. Think about what's happening.
Right.
Now, by the way, and that's one thing where psychologists and counselors are saying suicide calls are way up in California. And I heard the numbers. I don't remember what they are right now, but they're significantly, like huge percentages over normal because of this coronavirus, because of the negative news, because of everything that's going on. So again,
all right.
Social isolation.
One study compared quarantine versus non-quarantine individuals during an equine influenza outbreak. 2,760 quarantined people. Out of those, 34%, or 938 of those, reported high levels of psychological distress, which can indicate mental problems such as anxiety and depression, compared with 12% of the non-quarantined individuals. Another study looked at the effects of the 2003 SARS outbreak on 549 hospital workers, and those who were quarantined as those workers, almost half the sample had higher levels of alcohol abuse over 3 years than the other group. So we know that these quarantines, it's also said that quarantines lasting longer than 10 days are going to be the problem. Well, we're way past that. And it is associated with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So we're looking at comparatively long-term quarantine with these numbers already. So social distancing, or staying several feet away from people and avoiding regular outings, is going to affect society as a whole. Now, I know we have Yeshua, and I know those things play a part, but we're still dealing with the world. And it is said that at-risk elderly are the elderly because their social circle is already a lot lower as people have died and get older or sick. And that isolation, it can kill them, I've heard of the broken heart syndrome, but it's 43% of adults age 60 and older feel lonely already before this happens. So there's a lot more health issues that come into play here. We are already out of time. I did not expect that. And we haven't even hit what I wanted to hit yet, but there's nothing that can replace human touch. There's nothing that can replace holding hands, a hug, or something else. You can't replace that. There's nothing that can replace meeting online with somebody is not the same as meeting in person. It is not the same. It's not going to have the same effects. This thing, according to secular experts, is going to have detrimental effects. Detrimental effects on society. So what are we doing? Should we go quietly and let things happen as they are? Or do we become changers? Do we become those who sort of buck the system, but do it safely? These are questions we need to ask, because our congregational gatherings are essential, because while our society runs around in fear, we're supposed to be the good news. We're supposed to bring forth the great joy. We have Yeshua. We have the answer. We're supposed to go about and make disciples of all men. We are supposed to go about and be Yahweh's hands and feet. Hands and feet touch the ground, touch where we're going, where we go and what we do. If we give, the people the message that we think we are insignificant and non-essential, the world will make us so. And there will no longer be gatherings.
Well,
I don't know that gatherings will be the same even now. I don't know that it will recover just like every other part of society. I have no idea if we have lost our rights, at least to a point, if not completely, if this is just the tip. I don't know. I'm going to let you talk here in just a second, John. But virtual congregational meeting is not congregational meeting. It is not church. It's not. Yeshua didn't come in a video form. He came in person, and he went and he gathered with the people, because you gather with like mind and like kind. We as believers in Yeshua, we as believers in Jesus, those who use his name Jesus, we are physical people. In fact, it said that the term ecclesia means gathered assembly. If you're gathered assembly, does that mean you're alone at your house? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. We have people that are frightened out there, and we have the answer. We have the people that are running amok out there. We have the answer. And it is not the same if you're gathering on a video. Praise Yah that we have that. And that's the only choice some people have. But there's still power when the river that flows from you and me, that living water that flows out of our belly, comes together to make that living river. When our voices are raised in prayer and worship, when the rain of Yah begins to fall upon us, you can't get that on a video. Can God still move that way? Absolutely. But it's still not the same. We've been called to be physical, that we're a physical congregation. And we've got to gather, because the effects of that are detrimental, and people's faith weakens. Like I said, some are going to find this time of isolation, and when we do get together again, they're going to run. But others, it will become a habit, and it will just be one more reason that they won't ever feel like getting up, because they enjoy that time. Let me tell you, there are times where I would like to sit back on Shabbat and just rest, but it's about him. It's not about me. And I'm not saying I don't rest. I'm saying that it's his day. It is his day. And we are his hands and feet, and we're called to come together, otherwise. And how do we do that? Think about this. They could push this 12, 18 months permanently. I don't know. But we cannot just sit back quietly and let it happen. The scare, the fear mongering that's going on, do your research, folks. It's not justified with what's happening. We know there's other things at play. Therefore, guys, don't fear. Don't fear, come together. Governor Abbott says we're essential in Texas. I know that the Attorney General, Mr. Barr, said that he is going to stand on the side of those religious people, the people that got the tickets for having their parking lot meeting. He stood up with them. He told the local citizen government there that they were wrong. And I love that. I'm so glad. I was even looking at Hillsborough, what they said. And they retreated on their thing of Dr. Rodney Howard Brown. It said, Ron DeSantis also amended his executive order from April 1st.
Governor of Florida.
Governor Ron DeSantis, yes, in which he recognized religious services conducted in churches and synagogues and houses of worship as essential activities. So, we are essential, and we've got to see ourselves as essential. Or if we can't see ourselves as that way, then don't expect to ever be considered that in the future.
And here's where our stance is that when we gathered on Shabbat, we found that it was okay. There was a lot of different things, a lot of different rules, different things going on in the city.
We still tried to remain
county,
apart and all of that.
And I also gave a caveat to anybody that felt uncomfortable or whatever. Be prudent and use wisdom. But here's the thing, people, you wouldn't believe how much people had missed each other, how people just wanted to share and talk and vent their frustrations and to they're happy to be together and they have someone else hear them besides their immediate family and have that ability to talk and connect and to hug and all of that, and to be prayed for and to gather for worship, not only just for the study of the word and the Torah portion and all of that, but to worship as a body, as an assembly. And because we are created to gather, and yet we are allowing draconian measures, even in areas in this country where there's not even an outbreak. And yet we're shut down in our own homes, and there's nothing that is going on that it would be a risk to gather. And yet the rules say you can't have more than 10 together in a group. What's that about? I've been saying for many, many months, actually many years, right, Sandy, how we should always, be appreciative of the right to gather, because at some point in time in the future, we may not have that right. Well, did we expect it under medical tyranny?
No.
As some type of trumped up virus? No. But that's how it's come in. And some say that we may never officially ever be able to gather. The people on the East and West Coast, like in New York and in California, are suffering the most, and yet, and even suffering the most ridicule
from Democratic states.
There was an article in the New York Times that said that it was the Christians' fault because they refused to stop gathering. And so, what's that supposed to do? Plant seeds into people's minds. And yet, and there was a pastor said, I have every constitutional right. There's nothing those constitutional fathers said when they said that we had the right to gather, except when there is an epidemic. No, there is always the right to assemble and to have religious gatherings, so to speak. So here we are. We're in that day and the hour. One pastor refused, and he caught the virus, and they died, and now he's being mocked and by people. And this is wrong, because we have to be prudent. We have to recognize that there are certain physical conditions that you have to be careful about, and that's why we say use wisdom. But on the other hand, is that we still have the right to gather and to come together. And we're also given, as Sandy brought out earlier, we're commanded to lay hands on the sick so that they might recover. And we've seen all sorts of people recover because we gathered and we laid hands on the sick. Even just in the presence of God, in the middle of worship, people healed.
Let's just remind you, in the old days, you had leprosy. If you touched the leper, you became contaminated.
You became unclean.
But I want to use the word contaminated. But when Yeshua is on the scene, he touches them and they become clean, and they healed. And that's what we are supposed to do. So folks, my basic thing was I wanted us to look at gathering and what does scripture say about it. I have 100 scriptures that talk about gathering specifically, but we didn't get to that part. But we did get to some of the background that's set before us in the pattern of the first week of the creation week. And he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So always pray, but be praying for your congregational leaders and the time and the wisdom when you do meet. And then also do not mock those that would meet, that are saying, you know what, my group is not non-essential. We are essential. We are the doctor, the Yeshua, Yahweh. He is the healer, and we are the doctors and the nurses that bring him to the healer, bring people to the healer. That's the answer. We have the real answer to this. We can touch people and they can be healed instantaneously, or whatever. That is essential, folks.
Well, and there's a whole change now in our culture, and they're trying to program us this way to elevate healthcare workers as gods. And people are being called to go out and cheer the healthcare workers. In other words, give praise to healthcare workers. And they're even singing praise songs, worship songs, and to the healthcare workers. And the healthcare workers are receiving the praise. They're not like, what are you doing? This is crazy. But they're sitting there, receiving all of the accolades. I'm not saying that one person should be is any less than any other or anything like that. But the fact that they're elevating it was the priests who were the doctors in the ages past. They were the ones that the people went to for the healing and this resolution for health issues.
And when they needed to be isolated.
And today they're elevating the doctors again in their white robes, their priestly white robes, to that place. And we have to make sure that we don't cross that line. We have one king, and his name is Yeshua. And one high priest.
I do have to say, though, in society, this society has this tendency. They've always worshiped actors and sports people and stuff. And there's been times where they've worshiped the police officers and the fire departments. It's just, that's what people do.
I say give honor when honor's due, but let's watch our lines. There's only one king, and there's only one priest.
I don't want to stray from what this whole thing was about. And it was about, what's the word say about separation? Word says 1-to-1. It's not good until you're gathered together again. So do some research, think about it, pray about it. And again, support your congregations, your congregational leaders. Remember your tithes and offerings. Even if you're not gathering, those bills still go on. And, there may be a day and a time where people are going to have to pray. Your leaders are going to have to pray. Do we have to change even how we meet when we come back together? So it's extremely important that you support your congregation or those people that you supported in the past. Don't let that wait. Don't let that wane, guys. Okay. Anyway, that is our show for today.
Yeah, good information. And it was poignant, Sandy, and I appreciate it.
Well, that's why I switched gears. We were going to talk about worship and entering his courts and things, but I switched it. So, because I was like, this just doesn't feel right. So I switched it, and that's okay too. But if you're ever in the Amarillo area and we get together again, come join us at Life of Worship.
If you're able to travel.
If you're able to travel. Not that we may still be gathering this Shabbat. So as we did last week, I don't know. We have to talk. But also you can watch us. If you can get in touch with us on that website that's right down there. And we also have our email that you can get in touch with it. It's on there. It's LOW@lifeofworshipamarillo.org. And you can donate and support Life of Worship in the ministry that we have and what's going on here. If you donate, we need partners that are going to work with us arm in arm, hand in hand. And like I said, we try to reach out in many ways, even in the prison ministry, and that is expanded to the federal penitentiary. Now we're into Florida and some other places too, ministering to those men. So, hey, thank you for being a partner with us. Thank you for listening. And we just say shalom to you, and we're praying for you, and we can't wait to come together again. Right? Anything else?
Until next time.
If
there's any breaking news, we'll see what we can do to put it on either here on Messianic Lamb Network or on our own Life of Worship.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Life of Worship Amarillo. That's all you have to do, or type in Life of Worship Amarillo. You'll see a blue logo. That's us. Subscribe to our channel and like it, and have the bell. Lick it so that you're notified whenever we have something coming on.
And I'll tell you what, if I hear anything about this stuff tomorrow, I will post. I will do a brief clip, and we'll get it on there so that you will know.
Also know that we are meeting for our tour portions and our Torah studies, our Torah talk on Mondays, our tour portion at 2 p.m. Central. We meet on Zoom. And if you would like to be a part of that, email me so I can get you on our list. And that way I can get you the password and the meeting number, and you can join us on Zoom. Man, I keep ending and then I have something else to say.
That's all right. All right. Well, again, thank you for joining us. And this is John Craig.
And this is Sandi.
And on behalf of Walking in Spirit and Truth here on the Messianic Lamb Network, Shalom.
Shalom.